Hey everybody, just gonna wait a few minutes to maybe get some people in here. I hope everybody is having a great day. It's Friday, so I'm sure that has gotten that has a lot of people excited for their day. But I hope that it's going to be a great day and that your weekend is going to be filled with lots and lots of fun things to do. We actually have a little bit of sunshine here in Michigan, and that feels kind of good because it's super cold, and that isn't much fun. So the topic for today is going to be to medicate or not to medicate. And the first things first I want to say is that I am not a doctor, and what I say is of my own opinion and my own experience. So I don't want anybody to take this as instead of going to see your doctor. This is just opinion and just something to think about and to discuss a little bit. There are so many opinions about medication and whether a person should be taking medication and if it's good for you and what it does to your body. And there's just way too many things that the world decides for you. So when it comes to medication for depression or anxiety, what I want you to think about is not what anybody else has to say, but what you feel. And you need to discuss this with your doctor. And I don't want you to listen to your neighbor. I don't want you to even listen to your cousin, because that's not what is important. What is important is that you feel good and that you feel comfortable. The basic thing with medication is that it's completely trial and error. Obviously, there are medications specifically for depression, but the thing is, what medication works for me may not work for you. And what medication worked 2 years ago for you might not be working good enough for you today. So it's that trial and error. You're going to start at a low dose, and then you may go up and you may come back down, and I'll discuss that in a little bit too. But like I said, trial and error. And if you're going to decide to do medication, I don't want you to ever give up, because like I said, until you find that perfect fit for you, it can get frustrating, but it's so worth it in the end if you decide to take the medication. Like I said, what works for me is not a surefire thing that it's going to work for you. I have been on the drug Effexor for, I do believe, 12 years now. The great thing about me and that medication is when I know that I'm having a rough time, I can call my doctor and say that I need to have my medication upped. And when things are starting to level out, I can have it taken down a notch. I don't ever go completely off it. So that I stay on it, because obviously if I'm not having that many episodes of depression, it's working. So just because it's working doesn't mean you should go off it, or, like I said, discuss that with your doctor. And Kendra, if your spouse doesn't want you on it, I would suggest that your spouse go to a doctor appointment with you, or sit down with somebody who's maybe had the experience before. There was a point, I was on one medication years and years ago where Dad, or my husband, didn't like the medication that I was on. He said it made it seem like I was just disconnected from the world, and that it was true. The thing was, I couldn't see it because I was on the medication. So it's super important that your spouse is in on all of this with you. if it, the thing is, Jalen, with that, it will change your personality. What most depression or anxiety medications do is changes the chemical makeup in your brain. So you are going to be different. I am going to be, my personality would probably be different if I weren't on my medication. I don't think that would be a good thing. I'm still me, don't get me wrong. But what it does is that it levels off who I am. So it may change your personality, but if you're depressed and things like that, you may need that medication to bring you back to the person that you actually are. That's another thing with that, is that's why it's important to have your significant other or family members involved in any type of medication that you take. They can watch out for things. There's also, when you first start taking medication, there is a chance that it can make you feel Kendra. Oh, TMI. I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, sometimes when you first start taking medication, sorry, it could make you feel suicidal. You need your family members to keep an eye out for that, because they can make sure that you are getting out of your medication what you're supposed to be getting out of it. And Robert, you're right. It does take, it can take many years to get on the right medication. You may have to take 2 medications. You may have to take half of what they prescribed you. It is completely trial and error. I need to take a drink here. This is not beer, even though it's Friday, but no, it's Pepsi. So, medication, it can be tricky. Sometimes it can be scary, but it also can be extremely beneficial. And I want you to sit down with those that you're closest to, sit down with your doctor, and just discuss with them the best way that you should move forward. I know that there is a stigma when it comes to medication. And one of those things is, you must be crazy. You got to take medication for depression. Can't you just make yourself happy? We discussed a little bit of that yesterday. But, one thing that I want to point out is that if you had heart disease, you would take your medication for your heart. And, I don't understand the stigma with medication that you take for your brain. And I get extremely upset when people say the whole medication thing is for people that can't control themselves and just blah, 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 blah. Most people on the street would never know that I suffer from depression. Why wouldn't they know that? Because I take medication. Most people on the street don't know that I take medication. And it's not really every day that people talk about it on live video. But I am doing that because it's extremely important because if medication is something that you need to take, I don't want you to feel that you're a loser. I don't want you to feel that taking medication is going to change who you are, even though it may change your personality a little bit, Jalen. Back to changing your personality too. If you're extremely grumpy on medication, that's not the right one. If people are telling you that you're just way different than what you normally are, it's probably not the right one, and you need to discuss that with your doctor. So, trial and error. You may go through 50 medications before you find the one that's right for you. And that's okay. And Robert, yeah, going off medication sometimes is a bad idea. If you talk to your doctor and your doctor suggests that you can, let's try going without it. You can try going without your medication. I did do that. Actually, I took the newest medication that I'm on for 2 years. I went up to the very highest level, and then I was able to back down to the very lowest level. And then my doctor and I decided that I was going to go off my medication. And then my dad died. And although depression isn't situational, there are things that can happen in life that will trigger an episode in a depressed person. So I went back to my doctor. I knew that this was not going to be good, losing my dad. He was my best friend. But so I went back to her, and we went back on my medication. Started at the lowest level. A couple of weeks later, went up a little bit higher. Ended up going up to the highest level because I was having a really hard time. And I was at the highest level for a good 2 or 3 years. And then I was back down. I am again at the lowest level. But what I will tell you is that I do not ever miss the timing for my medication. I take my medication when I first wake up. I then take it again at 11:30, and then I take it again at about 6 o'clock. You can almost set your clock by the times I take my medication, because I am not going to miss that and then end up screwing up what I have going on. I want to move forward in life. I want to smile. I want to be me, and the medication makes me me. It makes me be the person I was before depression. And oh my goodness, Robert, that's exactly it. I was going to touch on that as well. When we talk about medication, we take medication because we want to feel better. Even when you're sick and you have to take an antibiotic, you take your medication because you want to feel better. And because of the stigma with depression and anxiety and things like that, people won't take actual medication. Then there's the time that depression hits. So you go out and grab a beer. And then you end up the next day going out and grabbing 3 beers. Anxiety hits, or you think that the only way that you can be you and open up towards people because of your anxiety is by drinking or doing a drug. Not a prescribed drug, a street drug, or somebody else's drugs. Not the answer. Because not only will you have your depression and or anxiety, but then you will have an addiction on top of it. And when you see people with addictions where there's a where it is comorbid with depression or anxiety, that addiction can make the spiral even worse than normal. A lot of times, the people that you find with addiction, you will find out that there is an underlying mental deficiency there. Not usually depression, bipolar disorder, things that in that arena. You will see that actually quite often. And people just want to feel better. They don't feel like themselves. They want their life back. They want to be the happy person they were. And so what do? You go grab a beer. And I get it. I completely understand it. But don't do it. And there are so many people that can tell you that doing that will take you down a road way worse than if you just went to the doctor and got some help. And then there's the denial of having depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder or whatever. None of us want to be sick. None of us, if you have diabetes, you don't want to have diabetes. I get it. But better to take a medication prescribed by your doctor than go down a road of self-destruction. And that's exactly where you'll go. And I hope and pray that that is something that you don't do. My dog is in here looking at me like I'm crazy, talking to myself. So if you guys have any questions about medications, just give me a holler. I can answer any questions that you have, any experiences that I've had. It's, you can hear him walking around. Yes, that is Janie. I'll be surprised if she doesn't make a few more noises. We have a Swiss hound, and she's never usually quite far from the room, or never quite far from me. Huh, Janie? So, is there any questions that any of you guys have that I could help you with? If there is, I am more than willing to talk. And if not, that's okay too. Just take what I've said and just think about it. I am thankful for the medication that I am able to take. It changed my life. It gives me my life. I obviously have to do work on top of the medication for the depression not to take over too badly. But do I think your anxiety in particular is self-controlled? I think you're doing a really good job. I do believe that if it ends up, here is what I think about when I think about somebody perhaps going to talk to a doctor about medication. If at any time your anxiety or your depression messes with your everyday life, if you're not going outside because your anxiety is getting to you, if you're missing out on things because your anxiety is getting to you, you should probably discuss something with your doctor. I do go through that. There are times where my anxiety takes over me and I have a hard time walking out the door. So when that starts happening to me a lot, I end up having to up my medication. And then when I level out a little bit, then I can go back down. So that would be my advice when it comes to that. And especially I can say that to you because you're my daughter. So breaking down and crying, and if you do it, that can be a sign that you may need some medication. Everybody has situations where they're nervous or they want to break down and cry because you're like, I just don't feel right here or whatever. It's those situations, everybody goes through those. It's when your anxiety or those situations, the breaking down and crying, interfere. Like I used to have a fear of public speaking. I don't know how many of you had that fear. Most people do. That's not an anxiety issue. Okay? So, and actually, I love to public speak now. It gives me an adrenaline rush, and I'm just kind of weird like that. But so, if anything is stopping you from living real life, then I do believe you should go and speak to your doctor. If you can push your way through it, and the next time it gets easier, and the time after that it gets easier, then I don't think it's so much of an anxiety situation as it is a nervous situation, which is, I know, kind of a catch-22, because a lot of people think that being nervous is anxiety, and it really isn't. There is actually a big difference between nervousness and having anxiety. Anxiety paralyzes you. Anxiety can take your breath away. Anxiety can feel like you're having a heart attack and you can't move. Nervousness is maybe shaking a little bit and, okay, I'm going to do this. You get done with it and you're like, oh, I did it. Anxiety stops you. There's just two different things between being nervous and having anxiety. And I think that's something, the anxiety word is actually thrown around a lot right now. And that upsets me a little bit, because what happens is people that have real anxiety is it diminishes what they're actually going through. And I'm not saying, Jalen, that you don't have anxiety, so I hope you don't take it that way when I think you know that I don't mean it that way, because, again, you're my daughter and you know me. But, you know what? I'm going to go over that sometime, the difference between nervousness and real anxiety. If you feel that you have an issue with anxiety, then you need to go see your doctor. You don't need to be medicated for everything. And he or she will let you know that, you know what, it's time for medication now. If it interferes with your life, then you need to see somebody. If you can make your way through it, then you may just need to talk with somebody. So I hope that makes sense between the two different things. I'm not diminishing anybody's anxiety at all. And, to be honest with you, I think that more men have anxiety and depression than we will ever know. And that's where that shame thing comes in. And I do believe that that's why more men are, and these are just all my own opinions, just so you know that. But I think that's why you hear of more men committing suicide than you do women, because they don't get the help. And we got to stop that. And men need to speak out. Men who have depression or anxiety and live with it every day could really be helpful to others out there, especially our veterans. The 22 a day is real. It's real, and it's not all just caused from PTSD. It's caused from depression. It's caused from anxiety. And if we could all speak out and stop this don't ask for help stuff, we could save a lot of men. And Robert, you know what? That is a really good point. You know what? I am a complete people person. I could talk to anybody. I don't care who you are. I could talk to anybody. But during depression or an episode, or with my anxiety, if I have an anxiety attack, I hate people. If that makes sense. I actually have a very low tolerance for bullshit. So, a lot of that comes from my own expectations of other people, but I do love to talk to people, and I do love to, hear about them and listen to their experiences in life and stuff like that. But when I'm in an episode of either or, I can't be around people, even family. I had an anxiety attack at one of our family functions, and I just had to leave the room. So that makes complete sense. You can be out there talking with the best of them, but you get a room full of people, and it's not good. And that is so true. How can you, and then you get the people, well, how can you say that you have anxiety when you're working and, you're in a storeroom of people? And that's not it. That's not what bothers me. And anxiety is not what bothers me, might not bother you. And that's where people have got to stop with the doubting other people. And everybody needs to start speaking up and talking about this so that it can be understood. Because a lot of people stay quiet because it's so misunderstood. So we just need to work together, keep this going, and just let's take the shame out of needing medication. Let's take the shame out of depression and anxiety, and let's kick some butt out there, you guys. We could all change a life. Every single one of us. We can change a life just by saying, I have depression, so I know how you feel. Or I've been in your situation before, and I get it. Just talking about it is what's going to make the world a better place. And just talking about it is what's going to save that one person who may have been thinking about suicide and saying, oh my goodness, Robert's out there working. He has anxiety. Maybe I can too. So you guys, let's kick some butt. I'm not going to do videos on weekends because my hubby's home. I did talk to him last night, and I am going to get him on here to have a couple of talking sessions with you guys so that you can have your significant others on, maybe that perhaps don't understand, and they can see it from his point of view. But those will be done on Sundays. So I will let you know ahead of time when we do those so that you can have your significant other here with you. But I just want you guys all to have a great day and a great weekend. Go out and kick some butt. Stay at home in your nice cozy home. If you have to too, it's okay. And just have a really super great weekend. And remember that your story isn't over.